Fit to Build Academy teaches homeowners how to plan, manage and complete your dream home build so that you increase your knowledge and manage your project team with a confidence normally reserved for experienced professionals. This podcast is about one thing, building your knowledge and confidence so you can be the expert of your project even when you have never built before. If you want to build your knowledge and confidence and use it to take action, then you're in the right place. All this information is 100% free, so please subscribe and review our podcast. This is Fit to Build Academy. Hey, it's Chris here, and welcome to Fit to Build and the second episode of our Deep Dive series. This Deep Dive conversation series is based entirely on the Fit to Build Academy Home Building Mastery Program and is designed to give you a sneak peek into what is required of you, the homeowner, when building a home. In my view, you can't just set and forget and hope that the design and build team will deliver exactly what you want. The project needs to be actively managed. That's why businesses actively employ project managers, something I have done over the past 20 years managing complex projects on behalf of clients. Over those many years as a designer, builder and project manager, I have worked with homeowners and equally businesses spending millions of dollars on projects, and have observed that the successful projects are well planned and resourced, and the failures are often the complete opposite. The one theme that kept recurring with these projects was that the successful homeowners had a very good grasp of the complexities of the building process and had the right mindset to be issues as they came along. They also realized that they had gaps in knowledge and sought to fill them before making decisions. And conversely, those that failed had not grasped what was required of them through the building process and were ill prepared for the complexities that are required of you as the homeowner when building. The Home Building Mastery Program was born out of a desire to help homeowners make good decisions before they get too deep into the project. To help people improve their knowledge and fully understand the building process, select the right builder, develop the confidence to deal with issues with their builder, and recognize the warning signs to avert costly mistakes. My view is that without this knowledge, homeowners will continue to fail to understand the building process, make expensive mistakes, which creates financial strain and confusion or mistrust of the building team they have chosen. The following deep dive conversation, created with our friends at Google, discusses the importance of clearly defining your why, or the reason behind your construction project, creating a vision statement that you can always fall back to when things get tough, and how to build the right mindset, and then understanding how important the schedule is and navigating relationships and the stress that you can experience when renovating or building. Underlying all of this is that we want you to fully understand the building process, to make informed decisions, and to ensure a successful home building project. So without further delay, let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some really cool materials today from the Fit to Build Academy. It's all about home building and renovation, and they really get into some fascinating strategies to help you create your dream home.
Yeah, they have a really interesting approach. Fit to Build really stresses that it's not just about picking pretty finishes. It's about making sure every decision...
Why, for a minute? Fit to Build is really big on making sure you understand that driving force behind your project, even before you start thinking about layouts or budgets.
Right. It's all about asking yourself, why am I doing this? What problem am I trying to solve with this renovation or building project?
Yeah.
Is it creating more space for a growing family, maybe improving the functionality of the space? Or could even be boosting the value of your property?
It's a great point that they make, that this why needs to be crystal clear, because it really does impact every decision you make down the line.
Exactly. Like even choosing the right type of builder for your project, decisions like that made early on have these ripple effects throughout the entire process.
And they have some really insightful questions to help us define our why, which I thought was helpful.
Oh yeah, those are great. Things like, what do I actually need in this home? Or what do I want in this home?
And they even ask, What happens if I don't solve this problem like 5 years down the road? 5 years down the road.
I know, really makes you think long term. And they actually share a case study about a guy named Jared who went way over budget and ended up super frustrated because his vision for the project wasn't aligned with the architect's goals.
Oh, wow. What happened?
Well, Jared was really focused on maximizing space and creating this open concept design, but the architect kept pushing for these high-end finishes and architectural details that added a lot of cost but didn't actually align with Jared's priorities.
That's a good reminder that it's our project.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're staying true to our vision.
Absolutely. And Fit to Build offers a really cool framework to help us turn that why into an actual reality. They call it vision, strategies, and tactics.
Okay, break that down for me. I love frameworks.
So vision is that big picture, right? It's about what you want this ideal home to look like, how you want it to feel, how you want it to function, not just today, but years from now.
Ah, got it. So they actually give a vision statement example.
They do. It says to create a space as the kids get older into the future. So it's addressing both present and future needs.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so where do strategies fit into all of this?
Well, strategies are like the bridge between that big picture vision and the actions you need to take to make it happen. It's all about figuring out how you're going to make this dream a reality.
So budget, design approach, doing your research on pricing, choosing that right builder for your project, those are all strategies.
Exactly. And each of those strategic choices should link back to that initial vision you defined.
Got it. Makes sense. So what about tactics?
Tactics are the nitty-gritty, the day-to-day actions that actually bring everything together. Think researching architects, comparing those builder quotes, or managing all those crazy construction schedules.
And speaking of budgets, Fit to Build is a huge advocate for setting realistic expectations right from the start.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement that champagne taste on a beer budget trap.
Right from the start.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement that champagne taste on a beer budget trap, but that can lead to some serious stress later on.
So Fit to Build says a realistic budget has to include everything. It's not just about the materials and the labor, it's also about those soft costs, those often forgotten expenses like permits, design fees, inspections, even moving costs.
Right, and let's not forget the celebratory champagne when it's all done.
They even provide a handy-dandy spreadsheet to help you break down the budget. It's really cool, actually.
Yeah, super helpful. They also warn against relying solely on anecdotal evidence from friends, Your buddy might tell you his kitchen reno cost X amount, but that doesn't mean yours will. Costs vary a lot depending on location, materials, all sorts of things.
They talk about something called optimism bias.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty common thing. It's that tendency we all have to underestimate costs and overestimate our ability to stick to a budget.
It's like, oh, it won't be that expensive.
Right. Or,
Example, where they break down a hypothetical $500,000 renovation budget to show how the money might actually be spent.
It's really eye-opening. They allocate like 8% to the architect, 2% for other consultants, 1% for authority costs, 70% for build costs, and so on. Really helps you get a sense of the proportions and avoid those nasty surprises.
Okay, so let's talk about the nitty-gritty of that breakdown. They make a clear distinction between hard costs and soft costs. What exactly does that mean?
So soft costs cover all those expenses that come before the actual construction phase, things like architectural fees, engineering reports, permits, that sort of thing.
And hard costs are all about the tangible construction elements, right?
Exactly. Materials, labor, landscaping, all of those fall under hard costs.
Fit to Build doesn't just focus on logistics. They also address the mental and emotional side of things, which I thought was really insightful.
They argue that your mindset going into a project like this is everything. It can make or break the whole experience.
We often get so focused on the nuts and bolts, the logistics, that we forget about the psychological impact of a big project like this.
Right. But building or renovating a home, an emotional roller coaster, and going in with the wrong mindset can really amplify the stress and put a strain on relationships.
So they compare a negative mindset to a positive one.
Yes, they do. They say that with a negative mindset, you might end up mistrusting the professionals you're working with. You might blow small issues out of proportion, and you might even start arguing more with your partner.
Ugh, I can see how that would happen. Stress can really bring out the worst in people.
On the flip side, a positive mindset can really help you foster good working relationships, keep those inevitable problems in perspective, and ultimately make more effective decisions.
So being aware of potential challenges ahead of time actually makes it easier to handle them when they inevitably crop up.
Yeah.
Because we all know they will.
Exactly. It's all about going into this knowing that even dream projects are going to have hiccups. There will be bumps in the road. But the right mindset helps you navigate those challenges without derailing the whole thing.
I love that. And Fit to Build also talks a lot about the importance of the schedule. Time is money, especially in construction.
They're big on creating a realistic timeline that encompasses the entire project, from picking your architect all the way to that glorious moment of final handover.
I know from experience that everything in construction takes way longer than you think it will, like way longer. Adding in buffer time is essential.
They totally agree. They actually talk about the concept of the critical path.
What's that?
The critical path is basically a sequence of tasks that absolutely cannot be delayed without pushing back the completion date of the entire project.
Ah, okay. Like pouring the foundation or framing the roof?
Exactly. Fit to Build actually provides a sample schedule for a custom build project, and it's really helpful to see how it's all broken down into phases.
So you've got pre-design, design.
All of those, they really lay it all out there. And speaking of things that can get messy, let's not forget about the elephant in the room: relationships. Building a home together can be a big test for any couple.
Absolutely. You're making big decisions, spending a lot of money, and often living in this chaotic state of construction for months on end. It's a recipe for conflict.
Fit to Build doesn't shy away from that at all. They point out that projects like this can be incredibly stressful, especially when you factor in financial pressures, unexpected delays, and just those natural differences in taste and opinions.
So they really emphasize open and honest communication from the get-go.
Yes. Not just with each other, but with the professionals involved as well. It's about making a conscious effort to understand each other's wants and needs right from the very beginning, and then being flexible and willing to compromise along the way.
I think that's such a good point. Sometimes those compromises lead to even better solutions than you initially envisioned.
Totally agree.
Solutions than you initially envisioned.
Totally agree. And they also remind us that we need to prioritize our relationship outside of the project as well. It's important not to let this house become the only Akers thing we talk about.
That's good advice. Schedule those date nights. Make time for fun activities. Remember why you're doing this whole crazy thing in the first place.
Exactly. Speaking of things to remember, how about we dive into the legal side of things? Fit to Build has some really valuable advice about navigating those potentially tricky waters.
So we were talking about legal advice, and Fit to Build really hammers home the importance of getting that legal advice early on, especially when it comes to the contracts with the builders.
They even suggest having a lawyer actually look over that building contract.
Even though it adds to the upfront cost.
Yeah, they see it as like an insurance policy. You know, that little bit of money spent up front could save you a ton of headaches and potentially even money down the road.
Makes sense. So Fit to Build is basically saying that even if you have a great relationship with your builder and you think it's smooth sailing, you still need that legally sound contract in place just in case things go sideways.
Right, because even with the best intentions, disagreements can happen, unexpected issues can pop up, and having that contract to refer back to can really clarify things and prevent those disagreements from turning into these big legal battles.
They actually share an anecdote about a couple, right? Didn't they almost break up during the renovation because they hadn't really hammered out their roles and responsibilities beforehand?
Oh, yeah. It turned into this blame game when things went wrong, and it really put a strain on their relationship.
That's such a good point. It's easy to underestimate the emotional intensity of a project like this. You're making huge decisions together, spending a ton of money, and often living in a construction zone for months on end. That can really test even the strongest of relationships.
And it's not just about avoiding arguments with our partners. Fit to Build also points out that we need to manage those inevitable tensions that can come up, with the professionals involved too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like what happens when the plumber is late again? Or the tile you meticulously picked out is suddenly back-ordered for 6 months. Those little things can really push your buttons.
Right. And Fit to Build actually suggests being proactive about communication. If something is bothering you, address it early on before it festers and turns into this huge blow-up.
Oh, I'm so tempted to just bite your tongue, you know? Hope it'll all magically work itself out.
Yeah. But Fit to Build argues that avoiding those difficult conversations can actually backfire. It can lead to this buildup of resentment and miscommunication, and ultimately it can affect the quality of the project.
It makes sense when you think about it that way. Everyone is working towards the same goal here. We all want to create that dream home.
Right. And open, respectful communication can really help keep everyone on the same page and the project moving forward smoothly.
So how do we make sure we're communicating effectively, especially when things get stressful?
Fit to build is remembering that this is our vision. And that means we need to feel comfortable speaking up if something isn't right, something isn't aligning with what we discussed or what we had in mind.
So it's about finding that balance between being assertive and being respectful.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance. And Fit to Build has some interesting insights about those power dynamics that can sometimes come into play between clients and the professionals they hire.
Like sometimes we might feel intimidated to speak up or question the experts, right?
Right, especially when we're dealing with architects or designers who have years of experience and tons of awards under their belt. We might think, well, they must know best.
Or we might not want to seem difficult or demanding.
Exactly. But Fit to Build reminds us that professionals are running businesses, and their goals might not always be perfectly aligned with ours.
It's a good reminder that while they want to do a good job and build a beautiful home for us, they're also focused on making a profit.
And
This might be influenced by what will look good in their portfolio rather than what will actually work best for our lifestyle.
right. And that's why it's so important to go back to that why we talked about earlier. That initial vision for our project should be like our guiding star, and we need to make sure that every decision we make throughout the process, big or small, aligns with that vision.
I love how Fit to Build puts it.
Hmm.
It's your vision. Maintain it, nurture it, own it.
That's a good mantra to remember when you're feeling overwhelmed or pressured to go in a direction that doesn't feel quite right.
So let's dive into some of those specific tactics Fit to Build recommends for taking ownership of our project. One of the key ones they emphasize is really thoroughly researching architects and designers before we hire anyone.
Right. It's more than just doing a quick Google search and picking the first name that pops up.
It's about taking the time to actually understand their design philosophy, their experience, their communication style, and really taking a good look at the homes they've designed. Their communication style, and really taking a good look at the homes they've designed in the past. Do we actually like their style? Would we want to live in one of the homes they've created?
Exactly. It's about finding a good fit. And once you've found a designer you connect with, Fit to Build talks about the importance of defining your brief.
The brief, like a mission statement for the project.
Exactly. It's about creating this really detailed roadmap for the project.
Okay, so more than just talking about the overall style we're going for, we're diving into the nitty-gritty details, the things that will determine how the house actually functions on a daily basis.
Exactly. Where do we want those electrical outlets? What kind of storage solutions do we need? How will we move through the space on a daily basis? All of those little things that can make a big difference in the long run.
I love that. They really encourage us to think ahead and try to anticipate our needs, not just for today, but for years down the line.
Right. And they also have a really interesting suggestion. They actually recommend interviewing previous clients of your chosen architect or builder.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea.
It can give you such valuable insight. You get to hear firsthand about their experience working with that professional, what challenges they faced, and ultimately how satisfied they were with the end result.
So it's like getting a little glimpse behind the curtain, seeing what it might actually be like to work with this person on your own project. I love that.
It can definitely save you a lot of headaches.
Right.
Another great tactic Fit to Build talks about is selecting a builder early on, even before your design is fully complete, to get a sense of potential costs.
So this is about getting a preliminary cost estimate to make sure our dreams are actually financially feasible before we get too far down the design path.
Exactly. Because those beautiful renderings and floor plans that the architect creates, those don't come with price tags attached.
And it can be a real heartbreaker to have to completely scrap your dream kitchen.
That's where that early cost estimate from a reputable builder comes in. It's a really valuable reality check. It either confirms that you're on the right track or gives you a heads up that you might need to make some adjustments to your vision.
What happens if that cost estimate comes back higher than we were expecting? What does Fit to Build suggest we do in that situation?
They have a very practical solution. Check against design and budget.
So it's back to the drawing board with the architect, right? Time to analyze the design and see where we can potentially make some cuts or find some cost savings.
Exactly. It might mean scaling back on certain finishes, simplifying some structural elements, or even making some tough decisions about our priorities. The goal is to make sure that the final design is something we love, something we can realistically afford.
It's that dance between dreams and reality. And it sounds like Fit to Build is giving us the tools to find that sweet spot where the two can coexist.
They also give us another option: reevaluate or proceed. We can either refine our vision based on that feedback, or we can say, okay, we're sticking with this design and we're going to figure out how to make it work financially.
These are big decisions, and it really reinforces the idea that this is our project. We're in control.
I think one of the things I appreciate most about Fit to Build's approach is how they help us manage expectations, especially during this pre-building phase.
They're very upfront about the fact that things will go wrong. There will be delays. Unexpected challenges will pop up.
But they also emphasize that with the right preparation, a positive mindset, and some clear communication strategies, we can navigate those inevitable bumps in the road without losing sight of our vision.
They're basically saying that building a home is a bit of an adventure. There will be twists and turns along the way, but it's all part of the process.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that even though it's our project and we're ultimately calling the shots, we're not alone in this journey.
We've got a team of professionals who are there to help guide us and bring our vision to life.
Right. So now that we've covered so much ground on this pre-build phase, I'm curious, what does Fit to Build have to say about the actual construction process itself? How do they help us navigate that often messy and unpredictable world?
So we were talking about how important the actual construction phase of the project is, and Fit to Build really emphasizes the importance of having a really solid plan in place before the first hammer swings.
They're big on setting those realistic expectations, especially when it comes to the construction schedule itself. And they're not afraid to point out that things will go wrong. There will be delays. It's just the nature of the beast, you know?
They keep reminding us that everything takes longer than you think, which is so true.
They're not kidding. And they actually provide this really detailed sample schedule that walks us through how a typical project might unfold over time. It covers everything from that initial pre-design phase all the way to final completion, and even includes that defects like
The sample schedule a bit. Where do we start?
Well, they kick things off with the pre-design phase, which they estimate will take about 80 days.
Wow, 80 days. So we're talking 2.5 months just to get to the starting line.
It really emphasizes that building a home is a marathon, not a sprint. During this phase, you're laying the groundwork for your project, clarifying that vision, figuring out how much you can realistically spend, getting your financing in order, and of course, finding the right designer to partner with.
Okay, so 80 days later, we're finally ready to start talking design. What happens next?
Then we move into the design phase itself, which they break down into concept design, design development, and then finally those detailed construction drawings.
This is where those beautiful renderings and floor plans start to take shape. I love that part.
It's definitely exciting. And Fit to Build isn't kidding when they say, allow for design to take longer than you expect. You may change your mind repeatedly.
Oh, I can definitely see myself doing that, going back and forth on every little detail. Oh, I can definitely see myself doing that, going back and forth on every little detail. What kind of backsplash should we use? What about the cabinet hardware? It never ends.
Right. And it's not just about you and the designer hashing things out. During this phase, you're probably also going to be bringing in other professionals, like a land surveyor, geotechnical engineer, maybe even an interior designer if you're working with one. So there's a lot of coordination happening.
It's a real team effort.
And they dedicate a good chunk of time to this design phase, a full 276 days.
Wow. That's 9 months. Almost as long as it takes to have a baby. Okay, so we've survived the pre-design phase and the design phase. What happens next?
Next up is the tender phase. This is where you'll spend about 60 days focusing on finding the right builder for the project.
So we're talking about putting together those tender documents, sending them out to potential builders, giving them time to review and respond, and then going through that whole process of evaluating the bids and choosing the best fit.
Exactly. It's important to remember that it's not always about choosing the builder with the absolute lowest bid.
Right. It's also about finding someone who you feel like you can trust, someone who understands your vision, communicates well, and can work within your budget.
And once you've gone through that whole process and you've appointed your builder, then the real fun begins, the build phase.
This is it, the moment we've been waiting for.
Right.
Hammer swinging, walls going up.
But before you get too excited, Fit to Build is quick to point out that this pre-building phase, all the stuff we've just talked about, can actually take much longer than the build itself.
Really?
Yep. In their sample schedule, they allocate 389 days for the build phase.
So just over a year.
And even that's broken down into multiple stages. You've got builder mobilization, completion of base stage, concrete slab works, completion of frame stage, completion of lockup, completion of fit out, and then finally final completion.
It's helpful to see it all laid out like that to understand all the steps involved.
Right. And each of those stages involves a whole bunch of smaller tasks. For example, under concrete slab works, they list things like excavation, laying sand and the moisture barrier, putting in the reinforcement, pouring the concrete. And then there's a hold point, which means work starts until the building surveyor comes in and checks that the foundation is level and meets code.
I've noticed those hold points sprinkled throughout the schedule. What are those all about?
They're all about quality control. Those are the points where someone has to come in and verify that everything's been built according to the plans and is up to code before the project can move on to the next stage.
Yeah.
It's a way to make sure things are done right.
So I've covered pre-design, design, the tender phase, the build phase. I'm guessing it's not quite over yet.
Not quite. Even after the house is finished, Fit to Build includes a 180-day defects liability period.
Okay, so that's 6 months where the builder is still on the hook for fixing any defects or problems that might pop up after we've moved in.
Exactly. It's there to protect you. During this period, there's a formal defects inspection. Then the builder comes back in to fix anything that needs fixing. And then finally, you get that glorious moment, the handover from builder, where you officially take possession of your beautiful new home.
It's amazing to look at it all laid out like this. The entire process, from start to finish, could easily take over 2 years. Really puts things in perspective.
Right. That's why Fit to Build is so big on setting realistic expectations and having the right mindset going in. Building a home is a long game, and there will be challenges along the way.
But with careful planning, clear communication, a healthy dose of patience, and a positive attitude, we can navigate those challenges and end up with a home that we truly love.
And speaking of navigating challenges, they also remind us about those critical path items, those tasks that can't be delayed without pushing back the completion date of the entire project.
Right, it's like that domino effect. If one critical task falls behind, it can ripple through the whole schedule and lead to delays and
It's important to stay informed, stay in communication with the builder, and be flexible enough to make adjustments as needed. We're in control.
And Fit to Build really empowers us with the knowledge and strategies we need to be active participants throughout the entire process.
They give us the tools to communicate effectively, manage our expectations, and really advocate for ourselves, which is so important.
So Fit to Build has given us so much to think about. They've really covered the A to Z of building or renovating a home, from the initial vision all the way through to the final handover. And they've given us concrete strategies for navigating all those potential challenges along the way.
It's clear that they've helped so many people achieve their dream homes.
I love that they remind us that even dream projects aren't perfect. Mistakes happen, issues come up. But how you handle those bumps in the road can make all the difference, both in the success of the project and in your own sanity.
And they've done a great job of covering both the practical and the emotional aspects of building a home, which I think is so...
It's not just about picking pretty finishes and creating a Pinterest-worthy space.
Yeah.
It's about making informed decisions, managing expectations, and communicating effectively.
And remembering why you're doing this whole crazy thing in the first place.
So create a space that truly reflects your vision and meets the needs of you and your family.
Well said. We hope this deep dive into Fit to Build Academy has been helpful and has inspired you to embark on your own home building adventure.
We've tried to cover as much as possible, from the initial planning stages to the final walkthrough, and we hope you feel empowered and excited to tackle your own dream project.
We're cheering you on.
Happy building.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you would like to work with us to build your dream home or project, please go to fittobuildacademy.com or follow us on Instagram at fittobuildacademy, where we have a link in the bio to book an appointment to chat with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Fit to Build. Thanks so much for listening, and remember, go out there and build something amazing.